Hi, in this video I just want to take a look at this new Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera. There's some things I want to go over that I think are awesome. There are some things I think you need to consider before purchasing it. And there's some things I don't think anybody's talking about. In this video, I don't have a Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera on me right now. They're still shipping. I did purchase one from B&H. I have some links below. And I wanted to go over a few thoughts on this thing. It's not for everyone. Let's run over to the Blackmagic site. And I want to point out some things to you that you may be thinking about, that you may have knowledge about, that you may not, before you just go ahead and hit that button. Not everybody has $2,400 to dump into a camera. And for those that don't, you may want to watch to the end of the video so you can get your wits wrapped around this thing. And by the end of the video, you'll be able to make a buying decision. Do you really want this? Do you really need this? Is this something for you to do for your channel or your videos or whatever? Let's jump over to the website and I'll cover a few things here. Okay, obviously there's a lot of hoopla going on about this camera, that it shoots in 6K. It's quite something. Now, if you've checked into the Pocket Cinema camera, the 4K, which came out about a year ago, and unfortunately, I do have my opinions about that. I mean, think about it. If you just purchased the Pocket Cinema 4K camera and you dumped, I don't know what it is now, $1,200, $1,400 for that, for an extra $1,000 or $1,200, a year later they come out with this. I don't know. I'd be kind of ticked off. I'd be ticked off. I purchased it. I did not buy a Pocket Cinema 4K. I have a lot of reasons for doing that, which I'll explain in the video. I have a lot of reasons for jumping all over and purchasing this camera. But, you know, I have the money. I do well at what I do. I'm paid well, and I have money. That's a crime. I'm sorry. Some people are wavering where they don't have a lot of money, and some people really don't have that much money. And for those that don't have that much money or are wavering, let's take a look at this thing, and let's go through the reasons why I think this is a good deal for those that need it, want it, or would like it. Now, as we look over here, it's obviously, I'm not going to go through all the stuff that there's going to be a million other videos that have gone through. I'm going to go through my reasons for buying it and why I think if you have the money and really want this, and there's some caveats. For instance, here's the new 6K camera. That's the 4K. That's the 6K. The first reason I bought this is because it has a Canon EF mount. I shouldn't say it's Canon, but it has an EF lens mount. Now, I have a ton of EF mount lenses. I have a Canon camcorder. I have 3 Canon cameras, a 5D Mark III, a T3i, a 600D, a 200D. I think that's it. There may be one other camera. I forget what they are. But that's important to me. I have a good $2,000, $3,000 invested in glass. I don't want to get this and pay $600, $700 or $500 for a mount to adapt my lenses and go through all that. I just want to mount my lenses. For me, that was important. For me, that was one of the things. To be honest, 6K is awesome. It was not a selling point for me. It's not like I'm really interested in doing YouTube videos where I'm doing a talking head and shooting in 6K. Woo! I mean, come on. I shoot some of mine in 4K. In fact, I shoot most of my videos when I'm live over in the studio at 1080p. And I render it high in double size in 4K. YouTube likes it and it looks just fine. That's not why I bought this camera. But the fact that it has the EF mounts was definitely one of the selling points for me. Now, sure, I can shoot 6K and that's great. Now, the thing about it is, as time goes along, originally when there was 720, that came out with 1080, and everybody's like, whatever, dude. And then it became almost a crime to have 720. Then they came out with 4K. A lot of people were like, whatever, dude. Now it's gotten to the point where people are buying 4K cameras. They're almost becoming a thing. The same thing's going to happen here. The one thing I must say about the 6K is I'm future-proofed if I buy this camera, which is good. And I was also looking for a 4K camera replacement for my Canon 5D Mark III, and this fits the bill for me because, you could still shoot 1080 with this camera. You could still shoot 4K. You could still shoot 6K. I doubt I will be shooting 6K anytime, although the computers and things I have handle it. Some shots, the Hollywood look. Same thing as the 4K. In fact, the Pocket Cinema 4K, it's basically the same body with a few exceptions that I'll show you. Obviously, the mount is different. Fiber polycarbonate composite, it's basically the same thing. Because remember up here, they're talking about these two cameras. These are basically the same, more or less. The controls are great. I love how the front of the camera, it's got an excellent grip for what I can see. I did have my hands on the 4K Pocket Cinema at NAB in April. I wasn't buying yet because it just had some things I didn't like, mainly the EF mounts, as I've covered. But it's basically the same thing with some extra goodies on it. Now, they're just showing you the resolution on this. It does have a high-resolution cinematic digital film sensor. If you look at the sensor sizes on these, and a lot of people cover this, it's a Super 35. Is it actually a Super 35? No, it's a bit smaller. It doesn't matter. This Super 35 sensor, when they start talking about that, they're not quite as defined as other sensors. It's not a big deal to me. Having a larger sensor, I think, is awesome. Let's keep going down here. That sold me. It's compatible with all my cinema lenses. It's compatible with all my EF mount lenses. I have EF mounts everywhere. And obviously, if I want to go to another lens type, I can use an adapter. But I don't want to be forced on it. I just don't like using adapters like that. I don't want to get an adapter for that and make it even longer. Dynamic range, they talk about both cameras have 13 stops of dynamic range, which is great. Davinci Resolve is included with the camera. I'm going to cover that in a minute in one of the missing things. Dual gain ISO, that's great. You're going to see a bunch of stuff about dual gain ISO. People are going to go over these specs and they're just going to go, wow. Some shot video, that's awesome. Now, production-friendly file formats. I have had my hands on some footage, and Blackmagic RAW is really good. It's really fast. It's really easy to edit, and it's just not a beast like some others. I'm excited about that. Here's one thing you need to take into account. Now, if you're going to be shooting 6K on this thing, you're going to need some really, really fast cards. It does feature a CFast, or you can use the SDUHS2 card recorders. It has a USB expansion port. So you could get a direct, just hook it up to a direct like a 1 terabyte drive, and you're done, which is probably what I'll do. These cards, when you go to buy this camera, realize right now you're going to need about a 300 megabyte per second card, which is the fastest you can get on these SD cards. They're going to cost you some coin. They're about $150 a piece for 128 gigabyte, and they go up from there. You need to take that into account into your buying decision, if that's a thing. RAW, I've already talked about that. The touch screen, obviously, it's got the same thing on both cameras. Nothing new there. This is interesting as it does have some features from the Ursa Mini Pro. They've upgraded a few things here. I won't go into that. You can check it out. Their color science, fine. We'll see when I get my hands on this. This is quite interesting. If you look here, it's really nice with a lot of options. You have a 3.5 millimeter input jack, which is great. You have an actual, believe it or not, XLR audio connection. That's a big deal for me. I have had plenty of cameras that didn't have that I've had to go over for a separate audio recorder. You know, it's not always great. I will always record to my Mix Pre 3. I have two of them, and I love doing that since they're so clean. But when I'm out in the field or I'm doing a quick shoot or something and I have a camera with me, or like right now I'm running this through this Mix Pre 3 and everything else, it'd be nice just to have a direct in audio jack, audio recorder, XLR input for my microphone, so I don't have to play games with adapters or preamps or anything else. That's a big deal for me. That's another reason why I purchased this. Again, a 3.5 stereo output. It has a full-size HDMI connector. In fact, almost every camera I have, and a lot of them are pretty high-end. I have a $2,500, $3,000 camcorder and all my DSLRs. They have these mini ones. I would love just to hook a regular old HDMI connector on this and be done to my monitors or for my feeds or anything like that. DC power, thank you. I can power the camera, because I got to tell you, this thing, from what I've seen with all these options, this thing eats power. It eats batteries. I think it uses Canon batteries. It really does just eat the hell out of batteries. In a studio mode, I'm fine. USB port is sitting here, which I also appreciate for expansion, and we'll go over that type of stuff, because I can record from the USB-C connection. I can just record direct to media, as we saw up here. I can just go into the USB-C port, come out here, and instead of using cards and stuff, I can just record direct to this media. If I have a 1 or 2 or 3 terabyte disk, those are pretty cheap. Some of them are almost as cheap as these cards now. That's a big deal to me. Another buying decision that I went with. 4 built-in microphones. So you have a 3.5 stereo input here. You have the XLR, which provides phantom power, very important. And also important is that it has a headphone jack for monitoring. Some cameras don't. If you're new to this and you've purchased some cameras and you got no headphone jack, that's kind of a shame, because you can't really monitor what's going on. This is also a big deal. If you don't know what a LUT is, it's a lookup table. Basically, the thing comes along, and when you shoot in, I don't want to get into this for you too much if you're new to this. When you shoot, it can look very gray and not very good, and you're trying to capture all the data and information for color correction later. This lookup table, it basically looks up all the different colors and maps them. So for these different shooting modes, these different looks, it has these, which is just fantastic. I've covered the USB-C for recording direct. You'll see here that we're not talking about this. Blackmagic Pocket Cinema 6K at 24 frames per second. You're looking at 250 gigabyte card. You're looking at getting about 65 minutes and about 30 minutes at 60 frames per second. We'll cover that in a minute. So this thing, now we're talking about the highest you can go on this, and you're shooting raw. We're talking about eating up stuff. I'm not going to shoot Blackmagic 6K RAW for my YouTube channel, but in the future and for various projects, definitely. Also, something I'm really excited about, it has a built-in timecode generator. If you don't know what timecode is, it's kind of important. There are a lot of projects you may be doing, higher-end projects, where you have one camera here, and you have another camera over there, and maybe you have audio recorders and various cameras. And if they can all have timecode, when you bring all that footage and all that audio into your editor, you can tell it, I have timecode with this, and it syncs everything up. Otherwise, you got to do it by hand, and it takes a long time. This is used usually on sets when you're doing multicam or doing a lot of shoots, a lot of multiple things like that. It's nice to do that. If you're just shooting like I am, let's say you're shooting with this and you're shooting with a recorder, do I care about timecode? Not really. It takes me maybe 15 seconds. I've done videos on this to sync up my audio. I'm not concerned about it, but when I start doing multi-camera shoots with multiple audio, then I would care about it. Here's a thing nobody's even talking about. I have a Canon 5D Mark III. I love taking it with me. I love shooting photos. I am not a photographer, but this is kind of a reverse engineer from the 5D Mark III, where it shot wonderful still frames, and then they turned it on the 5D, the original 5D and then the Mark II, they turned it into a video camcorder. And they're always trying to fit this video camcorder stuff with its crappy audio electronics and everything else into this photography camera. Well, this is a bit reverse engineered. I'm a video guy. I don't shoot a lot of photos, but with my EF lenses, I get 21.2 megapixels of still frames. Basically, I can shoot photos with this thing. I'm a videographer. I'm a filmmaker. I'm going to be using this thing for films mostly. But if I do, I have it with me and I want to shoot still images. That was one of the big selling points for me because I don't want to be schlepping around 2 and 3 cameras with me. Wireless Bluetooth camera remote. Many cameras. You're quite surprised if you don't have a remote. You're quite surprised if you can't control the camera. Maybe you can control the focus with one of those little crappy little remotes. You Bluetooth this thing up, which means that you don't need a Wi-Fi connection, and then you can control the camera. I haven't gone through, I will, all the different things you can go through, but you can set focus, frame rates, what you're recording at, I think you could nearly set everything on this remote here, which means you don't have to touch this camera. I mean, look at this. This is mounted on a slider. They're shooting with this, that's possibly a 300 millimeter Canon lens, and they're controlling it from here. I'm excited to get my hands on that. Really cool. Now, you can recharge. It looks like a battery grip. I don't know. It uses these LPE6, those are Canon batteries, and features a locking power connection that we looked at. I don't know if it comes with that. I sincerely hope it comes with a locking power connection for a studio, and it can also be used for the grip, battery grip. They sell the battery grip. I'm hoping that the 4K battery grip is the same one. I don't know yet. And it gets you two batteries instead of one. That's kind of cool. Although, again, this thing is a battery hog. I think it gets, 60 minutes? This gives you basically 2 hours, I believe, with a battery grip and 2 of these batteries. You know, you're just going to have to deal with stuff like that. You have to deal with stuff like that on a larger camera. If you'll see these larger cameras, these Red and these Aries, and even the Canon, like the larger 300 Mark II and stuff like that, usually don't go out with these little batteries and expect to shoot for 2 or 3 or 4 hours. Plus, it's not like you're shooting for 2 or 3 or 4 hours straight. You're going to be playing your shots. It's the same thing with this camera. You're going to hook a giant, battery pack to this thing if you're heading out to the woods, or you're going to use some sort of battery that gives you enough charge to shoot as long as you want. It's just planning. If you expect to get this thing and plug in the little battery, which I hope is included, the LPE6 is it from the Canon, and you're going to plug one little battery in there and you're going to go to the park and you're going to shoot all day, well, you better take short shots. So you're going to have to consider that you're buying this camera. You're going to have to consider, I hope they include the DC power. If they don't, you're going to have to buy that. Hopefully you already have the lenses, but you can buy Canon lenses. They're good, which means you can also use your cinema lenses, which is awesome for me. And if you're going to go out and shoot and you're actually going to use this remotely for a long period of time, yeah, you need to consider a larger battery, or a 95 or 150 volt battery powering this thing, so you can get 3 or 4 hours of shooting time out of that. It's just another consideration. You don't buy a camera like this for $2,400 and then it gets shipped to your door. You're going to open the box and you're going to go, well, heck, I don't have a lens. I have this crummy little battery. I don't even know if they include the battery. You're going to have to purchase more. And I'll get into that in a minute. So that's the battery. A DC cable pack. Here it is. This cable's with a D-tap. A D-tap is what I was talking about, being able to plug into these larger batteries. And you can also, they also have AC power type things that'll dap. The pocket battery grip, it looks like it's going to work for the 6K too. The USB-C expansion port, you can power the camera and recharge the internal battery. That's important if you're going to be using this. You need to plug in. Again, I don't know if it comes with that. And it uses these Canon LPE6 batteries. Now, just a little bit on Davinci Resolve. I think one of the things that isn't talked about, I mean, frankly, I'm a Premiere Pro guy. I've been for 15 or 20 years. You're not going to get me away from Premiere Pro and its integration with After Effects and Photoshop and all that. You're just not. Although I am going to start checking out Davinci. There's just too much noise about it, how good it's doing, and understated thing, I believe I've been told the new Davinci Resolve will include multicam editing, which makes sense. You're using this camera, you're using 4 and 6K, you're able to shoot multicams and time sync it. Being able to do multicam editing is really important for a lot of people who have more than one camera. I think that's great. And there are a lot of things in Davinci Resolve that you can do. The editing, I've looked at some of these. I haven't really delved in it. The method of editing in Davinci Resolve versus something like Premiere Pro, it's not so much the workflow, but the way you edit and move things and add things and color correct things is really quite different. You're not going to jump into Davinci and 2 days later you're going to be editing like you are in Premiere Pro, or vice versa if you're not used to those. But I'm willing to invest some time into that. In fact, I'm probably going to make a course on Davinci Resolve as I train myself and I train you. Back to the camera. So that's a good thing. You're getting Davinci Resolve. And the thing is it's free. It comes with the camera. It's a good editor. I mean, a lot of people use it. I don't want to get into Premiere Pro's better, Davinci's better, my iPhone's better, Android's better, Mac's better, Windows is better, whatever. I don't care. Whatever you use that works, gets the job done, is what's the best for you. And there's no reason fighting with other people that have their own tools and use their own cameras and use their own tools to get their job done. If they have the tools and it gets the job done for them, just pat them on the back. Good choice. Let's just run over this workflow really quick. There's a bunch of videos on their website. Most of them are 4K. Some of them are 6K. You can go look. Like here's a Pocket Cinema 6K where you can go look at the footage. You can actually download the files. They're massive, of course. And the documentary. Let's keep going through here. I want to get down to here. Look at the design. Again, it's a 6K. The body's the same. The only difference is the front of this is a little further. They were having some heating issues with the 4K. This looks like they've solved that. The vents are a little larger. Let's run down here. It does say, by the way, I don't want to miss this, EF or MFT micro four thirds lens mounts. I think they're talking about the difference between the 4K and the 6K. The 6K is an EF lens mount unless you get an adapter. Carbon fiber design. It's designed for hours of handheld use. Yeah, if the battery was. But the thing about it is the grip and the way this is designed, it's very handy if you're doing handheld work. Plus with the EF, you're going to mount it to a cage or a stabilizer or whatever. More on that later. Plus these EF mount lenses, many of them have lens image stabilization. So you're not going to need to worry about whether this has in-camera stabilization or not. I kind of like that. The lenses, a lot of lenses that I have in-camera stabilization. And if I'm shooting something really important, I'm going to put it on a stabilizer or a tripod or whatever. I doubt I'm going to use a lens that has no stabilization and run around with this camera trying to shoot 6K. That would be a nightmare. The infamous Blackmagic, I got to give them creds. This is beautiful. Of any camera I've seen, this is a really beautiful way to lay this thing out. And it's really simple. We won't go into that. The monitor is very bright and awesome. I would probably hook an external monitor. But the fact that I have a 5-inch touchscreen monitor, the nice thing about it is you get cameras and you're usually buying a separate monitor, $150, $200, $300, $400, sometimes up in the $800, $900, a separate 5-inch monitor that's touchscreen. This is great. This is a big deal for me. Now, I've got to note, this is not an articulating screen that I know of. You can't articulate and flip it around and do blogs or vlogs or anything like that, which is a shame, although I understand that. I mean, adding an articulating screen that flips out isn't just, well, we're just going to add a little brass hinge here. There's a lot that goes into that. If it does have an articulating screen, I will be blown away. I don't expect it to, but I usually use my cameras with monitors when they're pointed this way anyway, so it's not much of a problem for me. Thermal management, it looks like they've, again, upgraded it to handle, you're shooting 6K. The camera's going to get hotter. When I get my hands on it, I'll let you know how that works. Professional quality audio with 4 internal microphones. It has an XLR jack. I am really, really happy about this. It has 4 built-in microphones. I haven't tested them. I'll let you know when I get my hands on that, and I'll let you know how internally, how these are in the input and how the filters are and how everything works. Again, we've already talked about recording to this media. Connections. Again, you got the stereo input. You could hook a lapel or hook up your microphone to it. Full-size HDMI connector. Happy about that. DC power. Happy about that. The expansion port for external recording. You're going to record RAW. You can blow this out to a 1, 2, 10, whatever terabyte meeting. You got RAW. Would I shoot a YouTube video on RAW? I'm probably not going to do that. And of course, the XLR audio connection, which is just fantastic for me. One of the reasons I bought it. Accessories. Again, I don't know. I would know gimbals. I'll show you a gimbal that'll work with this. This 2L series battery, provide over 2 hours of nonstop shooting. There you go. You're going to get about 2 hours. So you're going to get about 1 with the 1 battery. I don't know if I'll get a grip. I might. I'd probably just power this thing. Okay, removable batteries. Blah, 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 blah. I mean, removable batteries. I don't know. I think they're just saying they're removable. I don't think you can pull the battery while you're shooting and keep going. I'll be surprised. Again, I'll let you know if that occurs. Recording to this media, again, that's the way to go. Okay, pro microphones, whatever. Timecode generator, that could be a deal for some people, which is great. And again, they're talking about the internal software. I need to get my hands on this. I used it at NAB. It's fantastic. It's easy. It's intuitive. I'll let you know when I do a full review when I get this thing up in a few days. And they're just going through all the different software, how it works, their internal software. Blackmagic RAW. I have played with these files. These things are super awesome, super small, super raw, and super great. They say it right here. Working with traditional video codecs is faster. Quality is down because of the limitation to 10-bit and 422, 12:1 settings. This is the compression that you can use or not. Q5, there's a 3:1 compression. It doesn't matter. These compressed files they look fantastic. You can download some clips from this thing. This is an interesting thing that isn't talked about at all. There's an advanced demosaic in the camera. Color science, I need to see what it is. I don't even 4.0. I want to put it up against my Canons. This is what I was talking about before. If you're not familiar with LUTs, when you shoot in RAW, it just looks kind of gray and like that. They're talking about with RAW settings, certain RAW settings that you can use their color science and do that. I want to know if I can grade this thing, and be able to see it in camera with the LUTs as I was talking about. That's fantastic. So you can set this to a constant quality or a constant bit rate. So you can prioritize the image quality. If you look at this, full sensor at 6144, uncompressed. I mean, nothing. We're talking nothing, totally uncompressed. 990 megabytes per second. I'm sorry, but I don't think I have a card or something that's going to handle it. We're going to be right about here until they get faster cards. So you're going to be shooting over here in 6K Pocket Cinema. That's normal uncompressed. You're not going to shoot that unless you have higher end cameras. Looks like their bit rates are really great. A constant quality, that could be a problem. Again, I'll test it. About 300 megabytes per second are the cards I have right now. But of course, if you're using an external SDI or whatever, that may work. I have to check that out. Yeah, it's fast. I've already been over that. There you go. 306.67 frames per second at an 8:1 constant bit rate. We'll keep going. We've talked about LUTs. I don't know what this raw player is. Looks like there's a player. Looks like you can take it, load your footage in, and just play and see it on your computer. That's really handy, so you don't have to go look at your shots, I think, for reviewing shots on a computer. I mean, think about it. They've used their 6K Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera, and they've designed their software around their own codecs, around their own shooting. This is probably more than likely going to work. Davinci Resolve is going to work just fantastic with this. Again, I don't know. I'm going to get my hands on it. Don't care. And there you go. That's pretty much. Surprisingly, it's $24.95, and that kind of blows me away. That's fantastic. Those are my thoughts on the Pocket Cinema Camera 6K. The minute I went through and saw it had EF lens mounts, the minute I went through and saw that it could take 21.6 megapixel photos, I was done. I've been looking for a replacement for my 5D Mark III for my YouTube shooting. I wanted to move to 4K. I wanted to do a course on Davinci Resolve forever and go through it. And you know how I will do things. It will be basic. And you'll also see a bunch of other courses on all sorts of different editors if you don't use that coming from me. Anyway, I hope that helps. I hope that makes you take a look at this thing and use your brains to decide whether you must have this camera. It'd be nice to have this camera, or just no way, you don't need this camera. That's important. You can get caught up in the hype and people can go, well, look at the footage and look at the 6K footage, and that's really important. I mean, seriously, are you going to go out and shoot 6K footage of your kid? So for most of the people watching my channel, take a look at it. If you got a lot of money and you're into buying cameras, well, go buy the thing. Me, I do well. I make a lot of money, not off of YouTube, but I make a lot of money with what I do and have in the past. So I'm okay with going out and buying things. You may be in that middle tier where it's a little painful, but if it's a little painful for you, look at what you're getting, look at the future proof of this, and you should probably wait until you hit that button and get in trouble with whoever you're going to get in trouble with, and know the things that you're going to get. I will review this camera. I will show you all the additions that you're going to need for this. I will show you right out of the box what you get and don't, what you're going to need to add, how much that's all going to cost, what you really get from this thing. And then you'll know before you go to purchase it. For someone on the lower end that doesn't make a lot of money, or someone who already has a camera, like if you have the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema 4K, if you purchased that a year ago and you're boo-hooing over that, don't worry about it. You got a great 4K camera. If you just purchased the 4K Canon or the 4K Nikon or the 4K, you purchased a GH, whatever you just purchased, don't cry over it. You've got a great camera, and I promise you, there are many people with T3 eyes out there, 5D Mark IIs and 3s, and various cameras like that they haven't even begun to investigate what they can do with that camera. And frankly, if you have a camera like that, and you're kind of like, man, that's a bit too much money, then take your camera and use it to the hilt. Learn how to use that camera to the hilt. How do you shoot on, let's say, a Canon 600D T3i or a Canon 5D Mark II, 3, or 4, or let's say 2, 3 in 1080, and how do you get it to look like 4K video so YouTube will see it and it'll respect it? How do you get those camera settings and really color correct it? That's what you need to be looking at. So when you do get all that knowledge on the camera you already have in your hands, and you do now know what camera you want to buy, you'll be going in and not caught up in all the hype. Anyway, that is my opinion so far on the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K. I have one on order from B&H. I do have links to it for Adorama and B&H below. If you do decide to go out and impulse buy this camera, you need it, I'd appreciate you using those links. I get a few pennies on sales. It's not a lot. It does help keep the channel going. I do not make very much money on this channel, and it just helps because I invest a lot of money bringing videos to you, like the $2,400 I just spent on the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K. Don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for hanging out with me. Don't forget to like this video. That helps too. And thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. And we'll see you next time.